Hi, my name is John Gabriel. I am an interviewer with the Public Library of Hamilton County in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am interviewing Mr. Harry Falck today on May 22nd, 2007 at the main library downtown. Camera operator today is Dennis Daly. Also present is Harry's brother, Jack. Welcome, Mr. Falck.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what you did before World War II.
I was mostly a school student.
Mm-hmm.
I learned what it was like running a kid during them days, back in the 40s.
Did you grow up in Cincinnati?
I grew up in Cincinnati, and I lived in around Norwood, Kenwood, Kenwood area all my life. And I went to school around Norwood the biggest part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
My brother did too. And when Second World War broke out, I was 17, I think it was at that time. We were ready to turn 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out of school, I was on vacation, school vacation. And on my 19th birthday, out in March, I got my draft notice. And I was supposed to report to Fort Hays, Ohio, on the 25th of August. So I got there in Fort Hays. From there, they processed me through the military program that they had, put us on the train, sent us to boot camp. I had went through boot camp.
Where was boot camp?
Camp Gordon, Georgia. Sand and mud. Red clay, sand and mud.
Was it tough?
And I figured, well, after basic training, I'd be going to straight over. But no, they sent me to, I've been to 5 different other units, ordnance, truck transportation, a little bit of intelligence, not much of it, but just enough to know what I was doing. And then that was lasted about till about August of, most of that August till August 50.
What year now? August of what?
1950.
Oh, well, let's concentrate on what you did in World War II for a while.
Okay. Well, most of the time while I was in World War II, I was an infantryman. The war was winding down at that time, in 45. And I got there about a year, about 6 months before the war ended. I went across the Rhine River. That's where I saw most of my combat in Europe, the Rhine River into Berlin and into Germany.
Were you in a regular infantry platoon?
Infantry battalion. B Company, 8th Infantry Regiment.
Where along the Rhine were you fighting?
Cologne, Germany, Düsseldorf, Paderborn, and a little town called, I can't think of it now, but it was a little small town up north that at the Russian border there, when the Russian took part of Germany. Was it
intense combat or?
No, that wasn't much intense combat. Most of it was house to house, clearing out the people. There was just stragglers.
Oh, I see.
They didn't want to give up. They stayed. They were going to fight to the last minute.
Oh boy.
There was just odd spots in there where you hit combat. When it ended, they all started coming back by droves. Germans started coming back by droves. And so we'd pick them up, take their weapons, store their weapons, pick everything up we could get, and put them in a sort of a holding place till the officers or intelligence could figure out where they were going and where they were from and send them to their town or wherever.
Did they keep them locked up for long?
They weren't locked up.
Huh.
There were no fences. They were put in a big open field. They could bring in their tents and stuff like that they had and put their tents and stuff up in a big open field. They were on their own. All we done was guarded them so that nobody would actually, they were just in a big open field.
I'll be darned, never heard of such a thing.
But the war was over for them. So why should they, and a lot of them didn't know where they were at the time.
Were they retreating from the Russians, or?
They were retreating from the Russians coming to us because the Russians would take them and do whatever they wanted with them.
I see. How long did you have possession of them?
About 6 months at the most.
Then they were sent back to their hometowns?
Most of them was interrogated, and whatever they could pick up, information they could pick up off the Germans on the war and stuff like that, through the officers and stuff like that, they turned them loose. And if you lived in, we'll say, I'm just making up a town, say like Bonn, Germany. There was a whole big bunch of them from Bonn, Germany. They'd stick them on a truck and send them to the military personnel there. And let the military come over from there.
I see.
And they were turned loose from Bonn. They were on their own in Bonn because they lived there.
How many of these soldiers were out in that field?
God, I didn't know. The companies, there had about 2 companies holding them. If they wanted to break out, they could have run for miles. We couldn't have done nothing about it. But
Wow.
they were so tired of it, and most of them was conscripted anyway.
Uh-huh.
And they were through. They were completely beaten. Nobody running them or anything else.
Did you ever see any of the Russians
One.
ahead of you? Huh.
Yeah, but that was all. The only reason I saw him is because he wanted my rifle and wanted me to trade it for his rifle.
Did you do it?
No.
That's funny.
But, it was, I didn't see much combat there, but it was just the idea of being there.
Was there sniper fire and that sort of thing?
Certain places, yeah. But I was lucky, I wasn't that close by.
Yeah, yeah.
But you could hear it just as soon as you were relaxed until you heard the fire.
Yeah.
And when you went to fire, you were tense and you were all, where'd it come from, how, when, who done it, who got hurt?
Mm-hmm.
And where'd it come from? We'll get him. Unless he give up, we'd holler whatever it was the Germans say to give up with. And if he didn't give up, we went in after him.
Did that happen often?
Not that often. They were scared to death. They just got what they could get and forget it.
Oh, I see.
But after the war ended, most of it was occupational duty at that time, getting their country straightened out and getting everything back online and doing the right thing, get them all displaced German soldiers and displaced people back in their place of town.
Did you ever see any of the concentration camps?
One, real small one, not much of it. It was just about maybe 100 people in it. That was about all. We run across it by accident.
I'll be darned. What was the name of
And we
that?
just opened it up and says, "You're it, gone, forget it."
Did they know you were coming?
They didn't have a chance enough to get rid of them. The Germans knew we were coming bad enough that they would march them on down the line, further back. But we took them by surprise, just by surprise. It was just, they didn't even know we were there until we were on top of them.
Were the guards and all were still there too?
Guards and all were still there.
I'll be darned. What kind of shape were the prisoners in?
You've seen some of them that in the big concentration camps they had, but these weren't that bad. They were bad, but they had lice and whatever else stuff they could get. Not much food,
Mm-hmm.
and they were called sort of a starvation diet, or what you want to call it. Starved you enough so that you couldn't run or walk.
Uh-huh.
And we got them back to where they, medics in hospitals.
Good.
And that was, after that, I was shipped back home, and I stayed in for about maybe that time when I got out. At that time, my hitch was up because I figured I'd be finished with it. But I stayed out for, I don't know, Korea. Oh, I couldn't hold a job because I was out of high school, right in the Army, then right out of the Army into a job corps.
What kind of job? What kind of jobs were you doing?
I worked for Cincinnati Millicron. The biggest part of my time was there. But they were waiting for the people out of Second World War coming back and giving them their job back, because that was what they were promised. You went to war, you got your job back, we were still here.
Yeah.
So I got their jobs until they came back. I was laid off and went to another job, and I wasn't laid off, went to another job until they got back. And I'd done that about 6 or 7 times, I think it was. And I just got fed up from going in the same place. And I said, well, what the heck? I got this much time in the Army, I might as well go back. Nothing was going to happen. Now this was back around 49. So I went in, took a refresher course.
What kind of refresher course?
Infantry training refresher course.
I see. Did you get to go back in at your same rank?
Huh?
Were you able to re-enlist at your same rank?
Yeah.
What was your rank?
When I got out, I was sergeant.
Okay.
But when I was in, it was only a POC. I couldn't keep my big mouth shut. But I took the refresher course training and went to Kilmer, New Jersey. And I was there for almost just about a year, from 49 into about up to 50.
Mm-hmm.
And Korea, no, I was in Kilmer at the time. And the war broke out in 50. And that's where in September they needed people in Korea at that time. I wasn't supposed to go back there.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to because I hadn't been in that area. I'm getting myself ahead of myself.
Okay.
And they shipped me out with a group of people into Korea. And that's where I stayed for a little over 3 years as a prisoner of war.
Tell us about when you first landed in Korea. What was going on, and what did you do when you first got there?
At the time I got in Korea, the longest area was about 100 miles wide.
That's all that was being
And
held?
the farthest end of it was 50 miles. That was all we had at that time.
So you're down in the Pusan
Down in
perimeter
the
in the
perimeter.
corner. Okay.
They were pushing people in and pushing people in there like nobody's business.
What kind of unit were you in?
An infantry unit, 1st Cav.
Okay.
No horses now. Foot soldier. They got rid of the horses. And
Did you carry a rifle?
yeah, and that, and sort of a scout. A lot of times I went out scouting in the areas,
Okay.
but most of the time I was on the line, backing up the South Korean Army, or fought what we run into on the line there.
What was combat like when you showed up there?
Combat there was rugged.
More difficult than in
More
Germany?
difficult than what it was in Europe, because Europe was more flatland.
Uh-huh.
And the southern part of Korea was largely flat. But when you got further north, you got hilly.
You were fighting against the North Korean
We
army.
were fighting the biggest part of the North Koreans.
What type of soldier were they?
They were good soldiers,
Huh.
but they were Chinese trained and Chinese advisories. Because
I
we
see.
had picked up Chinese advisories within the ranks of the North Korean army.
Did they have tanks and artillery and all the?
They had all Russian or Chinese made material.
I see.
The T-34s were Russian. Most of the rifles were Chinese or made in Russia.
Hmm.
Most of whatever ammunition they got was from Russian. But whatever we had given the Chinese to fight the Japanese, they were using too.
I'll be darned.
The trucks and whatever they could scrounge their hands on. And
Do you remember the first time you found yourself in a shooting match over there in Pusan perimeter?
online one time, something happened and that whole line opened up. I don't even know what happened. It just opened, everybody, that's the first combat I had there.
Did you ever see the North Korean soldiers coming at you?
No. The only time I saw them was when the night of the 2nd of November 1950.
I see. This is later on.
Later on, yeah.
Well, tell us about you were still in the Pusan perimeter when MacArthur landed the troops at Incheon, is that right?
Yeah. Okay, when they landed at Incheon, MacArthur said, we're going to make an Incheon landing. He didn't tell us that, but he said, we're going to make a landing, don't know where. When he made that landing, and they got the North Korean capital, the North Korean and the Chinese, or what, no, the North Koreans were so disorganized that they started going back north.
Were you all chasing them?
And we started chasing them. We broke out of the Pusan perimeter and started going north.
Did you capture any?
We caught some of them, brought them back to the rear with them, but wasn't there that long. We just kept on going and kept on going and kept on going.
Wow. It was
No stopping. Because
No
if we
kidding.
stopped, they'd have got gathered up and given the line, so we
So you just kept the pressure on.
kept the pressure on all the time.
I'll be darned.
And
Were you
we got-
riding in trucks or in tanks or on foot?
We both. We rode tanks, we rode foot, we rode trucks, jeeps, whatever we could get there on. But the further north you got, more hills.
Hmm.
We didn't take the hills too much because some of them were right straight up.
Oh, I see.
Trying to fight somebody on that hillside in a foxhole or in a trench, we just bypass him and starve him out of there.
That's a good idea.
It's a lot of little tactics that nobody ever hears about, like bypassing something and leaving the people there and making them come out on their own
Mm-hmm.
or starve to death, whichever you were going to do. Or you know there's something over there, and that you would know in your mind that there's somebody there. Are you going to take it? Or are you going to leave him, bypass him, and let somebody else take him?
Mm-hmm.
It's according to what kind of a situation you were in that you would say, let the rear echelon get him.
Would you notify them, say, hey, we're passing this hill up and there's some guys up there.
Well,
gotta-"
they'd find out.
I bet they would.
Yeah. They'd find out in the rear after they picked it up. And so we'd go on. We'd get our objective and stop until we got further orders.
Were you fighting little
We
battles
went-
along
yeah,
the
we
way?
just up and jump
Uh-huh.
certain stages.
How
We'd
much-
take an area we was at and we'd hold up until the rest of the line get up. Then we'd go off again to the line to a certain area and then the line gets caught up.
Were the North Koreans still running for the hills at this point, or
They
were they
were,
fighting you?
yeah, they were backing up when they made the Incheon landing and took the North Korean capital.
Okay.
They started backing up. We got as far north as we could go. We were within about 5 miles of the Chinese border.
And this is what month?
This is November of 50.
Okay.
All this happened in 50. Nothing happened until after 50, after I got caught in 50. But they invaded in 50. We got them back as far as the Yellow River, Chinese border, in 50. And then that's where everything broke loose.
Tell us what happened, well, more or less right after you got up to the Yalu River.
We got
Be as specific
within
as you
5
like.
miles of the Yellow River, and we were told to stop. We were going to go home. Everything was getting packed and go home. All we had to do was do patrols along within about a mile or half mile of the border.
Are you in central or east
Northern
or west?
part of it, on the eastern half of the line.
Okay.
And we'd go west along that line and check all the lines along there and see what they needed, if we were running into any kind of trouble or whatever.
Were there any fighting?
There was not that much fighting, but there was fighting at the dam area. What is it?
Oh, the Chosin Reservoir.
Trojan Reservoir at that time. We were just waiting for that to stop. When that stopped, we were on our way home.
Mm-hmm.
We thought we were. And we were just checking. We had 12 man patrols, 6 GIs and 6 Korean, and a speaking interpreter,
Uh-huh.
Korean interpreter. And we saw these people coming across the river, telling them about going up in the hills. And just as soon as it got daybreak, you couldn't see a darn soul come across that river. But just as soon as it got dark, they started to cross that river.
Were they coming across in ferry boats, or what are they? How are they coming across?
I was waiting for that one. During the Second World War, the Japanese had gotten all Chinese labor prisoners and soldiers to cut down trees out of out of China and Korea and pile drive them in the lowest part of the Yellow River. Take and put logs and stuff on the sides of them, tied them down with these poles in the river, filled it up with rock, gravel, mud, and whatever else they could get their hands on, and made a river, now a bridge, about 1 foot or 2 foot underwater.
Is that right?
Now, if you're flying over and you're flying fast, you wouldn't see it. And if you were if you were just looking at the river, you would never notice they were there.
How about
But
that? That's
when most of the patrols that saw them coming across like I did, was radio back to the headquarters, the Chinese are coming across bridges on the Yellow River. No, there's no bridges there.
Isn't that
You
interesting?
could have heard somebody cuss like nobody's business at a colonel. He says, Harry, I said, well, damn it. If you don't want to believe me, get your cotton picking, whatever up here, and come and look for yourself. Quit standing back there and trying to tell us what we know.
How many units are you seeing coming across this river?
I don't know how many had come across the river. Because when I got that, when I was ordered back off of patrol to go home, I was packed and ready to go home. I was up there on the 1st of November. We started back on the 2nd of November and got on these rice paddies. They're about wide enough for 2 people to walk on, actually bypass each other. And we run across a whole group of people coming our way when we were going back. And we just moved off to one side, figuring, well, that's the South Korean Army going back up front, you know what I mean? Well, we moved aside, and I don't know how many thousand of them went by us. And next thing you know, somebody come up and stuck a pitchfork in my face, and somebody else with a sickle, all up and down, and rifles, pitchforks, sickles, whatever the hell, spears that they could fight with. I went ding out, ding out, ding out. And, well, fellas, I thought to myself, this is it. You're going to kill us or take us back. They took our rifles and marched us back to almost as far as our lines was. And they started, and the 2nd November, all hell broke loose along the whole line.
So you're walking back on this little, between the rice paddies, and you see another group coming at you.
Yeah.
You just figure innocently enough, we'll let them pass and then we'll head on our way.
Which we didn't figure there would be nobody that far back. We figured they were about 7, 8 miles up the other side of the river coming across.
Yeah.
We didn't figure they would back down that far.
Oh my goodness.
But what they did, they wouldn't move in the daytime. They had no fires, no breakfast, no dinner, no supper, whatever. They sat up there in the cold weather, no fires, nothing, up in the hills. Because we didn't take the hills and occupy the hills. They'd wait there till nighttime and start moving at nighttime. Behind us. They were working in behind us. Because there were not many people behind us, because most of them were on the front line. They knew where they were going when they got behind us.
I see.
And when it got daybreak, they'd hide in these hills. No movement, no nothing. They do all their eating or whatever it does they're going to do during the daytime.
Huh.
Very little fires that they had. So when nighttime would come, they quit. No movement whatsoever. Daytime, nighttime they'd move, daytime quit.
Nighttime they're moving across these low bridges.
Everything that they get in behind us.
Yep. I'll be
Now when it broke out, when they started, it was up in Ansan, North Korea. And we started back. They marched us from here to maybe where that building is across the street there. And got us in behind the rice paddy. And all hell broke loose, that whole line. Here we are, all biggest part of us was packed up. All we had was what ammunition and stuff that we had for just security reasons. They came across them paddies, rice paddies, and they were, I cannot forget this to the day I die. Our poor boys were just dropping those people, killing those kids. One upon one upon one, they were piling them up. They were so coming across there in waves. They looked like it was miles and miles of people.
Wow.
Coming across that. Some of them had rifles, most of them had conscripted farmers that didn't have any rifles to give them. Front row with rifles, if the rifleman went down, he'd pick up the rifle and hand his sickle on to the next guy.
So they're attacking in this human wave, and we're cutting them down.
Cutting them down until everything got so low that we had to back up. But by that time, they're firing this side, that side, this side, that side, and this side. We were surrounded.
Wow. Wow.
So we just fought until we run out of whatever we had to, and had to take our chances by running or trying to get out or get caught. I was one that got caught.
Wow.
But
so when they took your patrol captive, what happened? What happened?
They separated us, the Koreans, the South Koreans, from us and took them off somewhere else, and they brought us after they made their major attack and caught the whole front line by surprise. They started marching us back to the rear. But they had already caught some people when they first started in Korea. The North Koreans caught some people up in the southern part of Korea. Civilians, soldiers, what was occupational duty up there. So they were bringing them up too at the same time. So we got to a certain area where we're out of combat area that they gathered us all together and marched us at nighttime and put us in a village, feed us what they could feed us, and then get us out at night and march us. And we had to take care of our own people. If they were shot, wounded, or whatever, if you dropped out, and we had to, he'd fight us. A lot of times the GI would fight you to leave you because he couldn't take it no more.
Really?
You get so in such a shape that I'm a burden. It actually, GIs actually say, I'm a burden. Leave me alone. I'll be all right. Forget it. We'd drag him, grab him by under his shoulder and drag him, or put him on the what's called, tie him down. And if we stopped in the daytime and wasn't watching him, he'd take off somewhere.
Huh.
And about the time he would take off, we'd hear a pop. And we just said, well, this is a hell of a thing to say. Buddy, we tried. Good luck. Goodbye. We'll see you somewhere. Walk off and leave him.
Wow.
And that's hard to do.
Yeah, no question about it.
Some of the guys had been there with 6 months. Some guys had been there 2 months. You'd come in contact with them and get to know them like your mom and dad, and something happened like that. It's so unreal. It just, I mean, after they got, I think we marched all over the northern part of Korea for a while. We got enough prisoners that they got before the war started, and getting all the rest of us stragglers and putting us in another camp as far north on the Yellow River as we could be. There's a picture of it over there.
How many were you at this point in the
I don't know how many
marching
was in the line,
caravan?
but I know there were miles of them.
Miles of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
They caught us by surprise. Our officers, they wouldn't have caught us by surprise, but at the time that started, our officers and things figured it was all completely done because we was up to the Yellow River. They never did think the Chinese were going to be intervening.
So when you're reporting, hey, I'm seeing these
Yeah.
soldiers coming across the river, they're not paying attention.
They weren't paying attention to any of them because the war, hey, the Chinese not intervening. We haven't seen the Chinamen yet, only what Chinese advisors.
You did.
Yeah.
You saw
and they
one.
were sending them back to the rear.
Wow.
And then when it actually blew up in their faces, they finally decide, hey, we're starting all over again. At that time I was caught and so far back to the rear that I couldn't have got back if I had to.
Yeah.
So I was there a little 2nd of November till about December when we got to our regular prison camp. I was there till September of '53.
Were you still wearing your same uniform, or did they give
I was
you?
wearing the same uniform up until 51.
I see.
No, 51. That winter, in the 50, the winter got so cold that if you stopped long enough and you wounded, you'd freeze to death.
What did they have to heat you with? Did you have
We
any
stayed
heat?
in the mud huts. They'd clean out of town and put 15, 20 people in one of these little 8 foot by 8 foot or 9 foot by 9 foot buildings.
Mm.
All it was one room, an alcove in the back where they had their stoves and stuff open. And the floor was heated by fire underneath the floors. And you put anywhere from 15 to 20, according to how big the room was, in a room. And you stayed there as a group. You was as a group. And you come out as a group.
I see.
and line up as a group. And they'd count you and whatever.
Would they take a roll call every day?
In the morning and at night. But that was it.
What happened during the course of the day then?
We went to communist lectures. They had American Chinese speaking instructors. They had went to school here in the United States and went to China. They taught school, English and whatever. They were conscripted in the army and we made an officer. So in Pusan, we had a big open field along the river. They'd get us out there in a group, and this Chinaman would get up and say, comrades, why are you fighting this war for your capitalistic people? That was, capitalist meant rich people. They're not doing nothing but sending you to war, fighting innocent people, getting killed, and they're staying home getting safe. Well, what didn't believe it got up, and the first words out of most of our mouths was, why are you fighting in Korea? Why aren't you in your own homeland?
So you were allowed to interact with them when they...
Yeah, but that interactive didn't say that you were going to be safe. You were taking that chance yourself.
I see.
So after a while they got to saying, what's the word? Oh, I can't think of the word now. But it meant the population of the people was correct. So if one man got up and says, counteract his saying, then just as soon as he said it, most of the men, reactionaries, that's what I wanted to say, would stand up. So if he was going to punish that guy, he was going to punish us all. And they had no place to punish him.
I see.
Only if they had caught you stealing themselves. And no, they stole, but if you, the group of you was there, the reactionaries would back you up. And the people that they didn't, that believed it, wasn't there. It was off somewhere else, making their speeches and whatever.
Sure.
But they were trying to, most of your reactionaries, they were trying to make believe that they were right and you were wrong, to come to our side.
Did many switch sides?
Well, I got pictures of 21 of them that did,
In your camp?
in my camp,
I'll be darned.
in and around our camp.
I'll be darned.
Most of them were, some of them were British, some of them were Turks and stuff like that.
Oh, I should have asked you that. But so you weren't all Americans in this camp?
No, we were segregated, but it was in the same camp area.
How many total prisoners were in this camp, POW camp?
I don't know, about a couple, 200-300 or more in
I
one
see.
area,
Uh-huh.
right along that border there, in the river area. They got you, had you bordered in the hilly areas around the camp, where they could very seldom use a very guard because you were so weak you couldn't go far, and the people in and around the area camp there that they didn't use would tell them if they saw some GI out. We had no fences.
No fences?
No fences.
Anybody try and escape?
Oh, 2 or 3 of them did.
Yeah.
But the civilians were scared of the Chinese, so they would tell the Chinese, hey, we saw a GI going down the road here at nighttime. They'd take him and bring him back. He didn't know how he'd bring him back, but he brought him back.
Huh. So they did. It doesn't sound like they were terribly abusive to you.
No, they
Luckily.
wasn't too much of an abusive because they said the masses were right. In other words, if a group of people said something, it was right. Even though they didn't believe it, why should we get accused of massacring all these people and just drop it? Leave it at that.
Yeah.
So they broke down the prison camps as reactionaries, partially believers, or people that really believed it, and things like that. So the reactionaries, as we call ourselves, was mostly given schooling or punished for whatever we done.
On a daily basis?
On a daily basis. Just like now. If I was there, they'd call us out in the mornings, put us in this open field. This Chinese instructor would get up. Well, today, comrades, I'm going to speak on why are you here in the war? When your government, Rich, Rockefeller, Tom Jones, the millionaires, are sending you here to fight a peaceful country. Peace-loving country.
Day after day.
Most of the day after day.
Wow.
And then they'd always have a different subject. Saying, the war on the front lines is going bad for you people. When it was good on our side. You know, it wasn't.
Yeah.
We didn't know. So we took it on ourselves. What the hell is he talking about?
So
He knows, but I don't. Why should I believe him? I don't see it.
Was he the only source of news you had, period?
Yeah, that was about the only news. Besides, we had a radio that would broadcast from China into us about the war situation on the front line.
Like a
like
Tokyo Rose kind of program?
Something like, yeah. But we'd get out and about in the mornings, have whatever we were supposed to have lunch if they wanted to give it to us.
What was the kind of food they gave you?
Most of it was rice and a little bit of vegetables and some pork that they shipped in. But they only shipped that in at nighttime because during the daytime we had airplanes chasing MiGs back and forth across the air. We'd sit there in the camp, hey, there goes a Chinaman, here comes a MiG. And we're sitting out watching across the Yellow River one day, just sitting there watching, just standing there. All of a sudden, the river came in this way and made a turn like that. And there was another small pond or whatever, it went back up in that way. And this jet, and behind it, if he didn't make that straight up, he'd have run into this mountainside over here. I don't know where he came from, but that guy come down off of that Yellow River, the straight stretch of that Yellow River. He was doing 100 or 150 or 1,000 miles an hour, I don't know. But he come down through there and he went, and he was about, if he was 100 feet off the ground, we stand there high, we could see the man's face.
Wow.
He tipped his wing and zoom. And I said, God, did he lucky.
That was an American fighter?
That was an American jet fighter.
Wow.
And I wished I knew who he was or how he got him. We didn't find out who he is.
I'll be darned.
That was just about the time of the end of the war. They were beginning to get caught up on the lines, and peace negotiations were still going, and they were still fighting. But the MiGs would cross over from China into Korea, under our side, then they'd run them back.
I'll be darned.
And we couldn't cross in the back to get them.
Right.
But hey, you're driving a jet, and the next thing you know, there's a river.
Wow.
It's in some, maybe 5 miles in the China side and coming back.
Well, tell us what kind of things they allowed you to do, other than
Well,
listen to them lecture. Was there?
We had, most of our time we went work details.
Yeah.
In the summertime, we'd go out in the woods and pick up wood and stuff for our stoves and stuff.
Yeah.
Or we'd go down to the supply area and pick up our supplies and bring them back into camp.
What kind of supplies?
It would be pork, whole hog, or some vegetables, mostly rice, what they ate,
Mm-hmm.
soybeans, millet, rice, what little vegetables they'd issue out to us.
So each of these 9x9 or 8x8 cabins had their own stove, and you all cooked for yourselves?
Yeah, we got so much for so many people, and we could cook about outside on our own.
Were there any medical facilities for the group?
What medical facilities they had at a hospital, but you didn't know if you were going to come out of there alive or not.
Did some prisoners perish in the hospitals?
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
there were a lot of them. They didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
and they piddled around with us so much that it was pathetic. One person that I know of, he went up and they were going to do something to him. And something happened, and a Chinaman got a little peeved with him. And he just stood there. And he walked off. We never did see him after that. I don't know whatever happened to him.
Huh.
Things like that. And we'd have a certain time to eat. We had a certain time that we couldn't have a fire or anything. But we could have enough out of the hibachi area back, what's called was covered up. The embers wouldn't show outside because the covering would cover them, and we'd put a blanket or something over it so it wouldn't cover. So the heat would come into the floor at nighttime.
I see.
But in the mornings, they'd get us up, take us out, have roll call, do what we were going to do, put us back in, eat. They wanted us to do something else, we'd do something else again. We'd go get wood for the winter time, we'd go out in the woods, cut wood, bring it back in, chop it up.
Could you get mail?
No,
No mail.
no mail.
Hmm.
But they made a lot of propagandas from us.
Were you able to write, or did someone notify your
for a
folks
while,
at home?
They, after they got the peace negotiations started, we could write. But you had to write, even though you were living in misery and filth or whatever. Oh, we're getting good food, this, that, and the other. Say, maybe yesterday, I got rice with ants in them. You couldn't say, well, I got a bowl of rice yesterday, plenty of rice yesterday, and I had a lot of meat. Ants. No way.
No way.
Because then in the United States, nobody knew what ants were good for.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't want that bad propaganda going home.
Yeah, propaganda purposes.
Yeah, sure.
Or you couldn't say that so-and-so got mistreated today for something that he didn't.
When they would mistreat somebody, what would they do?
It was according to what you'd done. If you took off and they caught you, they put you in a little hole about size enough to fit you in there, and make you stand up in that hole just like a rigid soldier. Make you stand there with a guard on you.
Hmm.
If you relaxed, he'd stick you with the bayonet until you get straightened up. And he'd keep you that way as long as they wanted you to.
Hmm.
And when they wanted you to, they'd take you out and say, now, apologize to us for what you did. Confess to what you did. If the guy was weak enough, he'd probably say anything to get out of there.
Yeah.
So we'd say, we're sorry, and then leave it at that. Wouldn't say no more.
Were you ever put in that position?
Just one time.
What was it you did?
What was it? I forgot what it was. Oh, me and another guy were just playing around together, and the Chinaman come over and wanted to stop. We were just wrestling around, let's call it. And we both took a swing at each other, and instead I hit the Chinaman, the guard.
Wow.
And that was the only, and then they took him and put me in there for a couple of days. But,
Couple of days.
yeah.
Oh, boy.
But what made it so funny, they had gotten so where we could time the guards to come around. So when the guys would get meal time, they would put what vegetables or whatever else they got in their bowl, sneak out and feed it to us.
I see.
Sneak out and feed it to us. Then
Oh,
they'd
that
take
was
off
nice.
and go back.
Good, good.
And wasn't a life of ease, but
No.
it was still good. If they had got caught, they'd have been in the same shape we were.
Was it just one at a time in the box, or were you
Yeah,
in
it
there
was just one at a time.
Oh,
But
boy.
if they had more than one, they would get a group out and dig another hole, made another thing like it, and put them in. If you died of starvation, you starved yourself or whatever, then we'd take them up, put them in a shed, an extra body shed they called it, until they got a certain amount of them, and they'd get a burial detail. They'd have a Red Cross on the flag then, and we'd take them out and bury them along a hillside, big shallow holes, just enough to cover your body, not too deep. Put rocks, dirt, gravel over them. And this was on a main road, going in and out of the camp. And it rained so hard one time in the summertime that the hillside started floating down the hill.
Huh.
All the bodies started showing up, bones and whatever.
Oh,
Went back up and buried them up again.
When you got captured, were you a lot heavier than you were when you got released? Did you weigh a lot more?
Oh yeah,
How much weight do you think you lost?
I lost about 100 pounds, I think. 190 or 180, somewhere in there an area at that time. I was a skinny person. I wasn't too, 200-pound pack would have dropped me in the middle of the floor if I had to carry it.
Wow, wow. Well, we haven't got too much time left. Tell us what happened as the war wound down and you got released.
Well, we heard the war was winding down, and that John was asking for a certain amount of people. They were turning all the reactionary people first, what we call reactionary, that sided with them and this, that, and the other. Then they were getting rid of the non-active reactionaries, what we call them, people that fought against them, didn't believe them, or whatever. They were coming out last.
Okay.
So when they finished through the sick and wounded was first, then the reactionary, the progressives, and the reactionaries. They were last to turn loose.
I see.
And I was about one of the last group of 100 men to be turned loose. They had 2 more groups to be turned loose after I got turned loose. When I got turned loose, they brought us down as far as the line, Pemmican. They had so many miles on the north side of Korea, so many miles on the south side of Korea. No war zone. It was all peace all along that whole line.
Uh-huh.
You had to come in through a gate into Pemmican, stop in the middle of the bridge, get off the trucks, go across, while they grinned, North Koreans got off the truck at the same area, middle of the bridge, and walk across the bridge into their line.
You pass them on the way?
Just passed them on the way.
Now
Then
you-
they would, on the other side, they'd pick you up in a truck, an ambulance, so many to an ambulance, and brought you to the station. Well, on the way into the hospital, on the trucks and stuff, most of us got rid of a lot of Chinese uniforms we had. We stripped down to naked. We were stark naked when most of us come off. We got in the ambulance and then think, we're just see medics, regular men. When we got to the hospital area, they opened up them doors. Our faces got so red, it looked like it couldn't have gotten any redder than this jacket was. Nurses lining up, taking us into what you call it. And we just said, well, nothing we could do. Most of us say, you got to take us the way you see it. If you don't like it, forget it.
So they get you cleaned up and fed? And
yeah, we got cleaned up and got our clothes, got some clothes, and then they started interrogating us. And the interrogation was, who do you know stayed? What did you know that stayed? Why did he stay? Who died if you know him? Or what happened to him? Or did you see so-and-so? Or did you see any Russians or Chinese or whatever foreign dignitaries in there when we were there? He interrogated us about 3 good days. And then after that, they got us in and told us to go take a good bath and get some ordinary clothes on and go over to such and such a station and stay there until they come and pick you up. You go into another place and you stay there till you got shipped home. And they put us on a boat and shipped us home.
Fantastic.
They interrogated us all the way home by boat or while you were there about somebody there.
I see.
Or what happened and things like that. Like we had a guy, I'm not going to say his name was, but he was in my outfit, that put, while we were marching, and it was cold winter, it was the coldest winter that they had in Korea. And these guys were, most of us were starved to death, not starved anyway, get what food we could get. And he put them out in the freeze and let them die in the freeze, cold air. And we kept that in our minds until we got back for interrogation. We ever got back for interrogation, we couldn't say on. So we told on him about what happened. And he was a nice guy. You would never think he would do anything like that. And the guys that we knew, that what we call reactionaries, were telling them people on us. We knew who they were. And when he got back interrogated, and it was our turn to tell on them. Tail for tail.
Yeah, good.
Tit for tat.
Good.
But we had a lot of fun. I mean, one night, there was about 6 of us. And we made some wooden whistles out of willow trees. We ran around the hills. And one night we got...
I just want to tell you we're down to 1 minute.
Okay.
I would like to end this by, if we could, Dennis, can you zero in on that tie and on this patch here, because we've never seen one of these before while I've been an interviewer. And it says American ex-prisoner of war on his patch, and POWMIA, you are not forgotten, on his tie. I think it's a great testimony.
This is an organization here in what's it called? There's most of those are all Second World War people.
Well, I think it's terrific that you wore that. I think it's important that people see that. And I wanted to bring that to the attention of the camera before we ran out of tape. And he knows how to get the zoom right in on that.
Hey, make a face too. Yeah.
Anything it's your tape.
No, well,
anyway, I wanted to thank you. This has been a terrific interview. I appreciate you taking the time to do it, and for your service for the country and your experiences.
Anytime you want it, holler.
Well, thank you very much.
I know a lot of people would give you some more if you wanted any of it.
Well, we do want to hear it all. So thanks very much, Harry.
I appreciate it.